What lesson, that is my subject today, what lesson can we draw from the sad passing of Ubabu Jonas Gwangwa, Umam Sibongile, and all other icons that we've just buried? Yeah, I can take you back as far as Mahlatini, Ubabu Ray Piri, all these icons that we are losing one by one in the industry, and what role could they have played? What role did they play? What role further that they could have played? And what are we missing? What are we losing? What lessons can be drawn from this, so that past this COVID-19 we look at we take a conscious decision on how best we can utilize these icons that have so much knowledge, so much experience, that have participated not only, because one of the things that I want to deal with today, it is this fallacy or the myth that seeks to suggest that artists should not be part of the politics. You are not expected to participate in political activism and be affiliated with any organization. I don't know why that myth, because for me it is a fallacy. I must say it doesn't. I'm a cultural activist, and I'm a political animal. If you put me in the politics, I'm there. You can't miss me in the politics, because you see, we should understand first and foremost that artists are not isolated, one would say isolated islands. We are not islands. We are part and parcel of the broader society. We come from different backgrounds, we come from different families, we have experienced life differently, and politics has such an impact in everything that we do. We are citizens before we are artists. We are citizens of this country. And any policy that is taken by government, or any ideology that is carried by a political party, if that political party comes to power, it means the ideologies that it has will impact on our lives too. I was brought up under the African National Congress. I come from the background of the UDF, United Democratic Front. During those days, or during my school days at high school, I was part and parcel of the movement called UDF. And that's where I started my political activism. And that was before I became an artist, a known artist. Because you are an artist from birth, it is a gift that you have. Now, this fallacy that artists should not be associated to any political organization or affiliated to any political organization, I want to deal with that, because today we are bearing somebody that we know that as an artist contributed immensely towards the struggle against apartheid. Ubabu Jonas Gwangwa was part of the Amandla Assemble, which was an initiative by, or sort of a I don't know whether to say an underground movement, cultural movement by the African National Congress. Let me not say underground, because they were known. it was known that there was Amandla, but its activists, its activities were not known. It was their activities, political activities, were camouflaged with the cultural activities, meaning the performances. But within the performances, they were messages, political messages driven. Not only political messages, there was also a responsibility, if my memory serves me well, that part of that, the weapons that would be transported by artists, because when you get to the border, people would not, suspect anything. They were using, these keyboard cases. What do you call it? I've forgotten. I haven't been in this live performance issues. I mean, live performance with the band. But we had flight cases, what we call flight cases. And these flight cases, they would put the weapons underneath and then put the keyboard on top. So when the police officer opens the flight case, only sees the keyboard and that's it. And remember that the flight cases, they are not thin, they are very thick. Inside they've got a thick sponge to cushion the keyboard. Now these sponges will be cut, and I don't know which guns would they be carrying, maybe AK-47, and AK-47 could be laid inside the flight case, and that's how it is taken out of the country into the camps of the African National Congress, Umkhonto weSizwe. Others would be sending clothes to support our comrades outside the country. Others will be taking letters, the communication between the leadership that is within and the leadership that is outside the country, the letters, because you could not be seen to be transporting information outside the country. So there were means, artists were used for that purpose. Others would escape the country. Other politicians would escape the country through the trip, on a trip that is organized for artists to go and perform in Botswana or in Lesotho. Then other people will be put into the list of artists who are going outside, and when they know that those people are not artists, it is for them to get through the border, and once they have crossed the border, then they go to the destination where they are going to. When they come back, they come back without those. It has been an underground movement, a subtle underground movement that was there. Now, if people like Ubabu Gwangwa, Hugh Masekela, Miriam Makeba, you know the story around Miriam Makeba, that even Ubabu O.R. Tambo once said that what they could not do in many, many years, Miriam Makeba did it in few minutes, speaking at the United Nations, making the world aware of what was happening in the country. Making people, the world, aware of what was happening in the country. As a result, we gathered the support of the international community against apartheid. Now, how do you then, post-1994, and expect artists to be naive, to be apolitical, and inactive, disengaged in politics? I do not know. Now, that is not yet the lesson that I want to bring forth. Here's the sector that has such icons who could have taught us how they did things, who could have narrated the stories. We know that as Africans, one of the ways that we transfer knowledge, we tell stories, we narrate stories, we pass history from one generation to another generation by narrating the stories. And there is no program in this country at the moment, currently, that facilitates that dialogue, that facilitates that elderly artists that could have been benefiting elderly artists who can no longer go on stage and be active like us, go around the country performing. In fact, they shouldn't even be doing that. They shouldn't be doing that at all. This is where we are supposed to have them employed, or rather deployed, to tell the stories, so that we document our stories, we document our history. Today, the history can be documented digitally, and digital documentation of these things could also draw revenue from, we could draw revenue from it. Because there are schools, there are universities that would want to use this. Instead of us continuously, when we go to universities to study music and do the history of Bach, people that we don't know, we should be learning the history, our own history, the African history. Why should people do music and be taught history of Bach, classical music, instead of learning about our own African music and people who are part and parcel of that journey, given the opportunity to come to universities and teach about, or be given that particular opportunity to come and tell your own story at university. I have told the Kwaito story at Wits University to American students who were visiting Wits. I was called by the lecturer. The lecturer at Wits to say, can you come and teach? I think it was Professor, who was this professor who did anthropology? He called me to come and teach, tell our story, narrate our story to Americans. But what about South African children? Why am I not called to come and teach about the history of Kwaito music around the country, so that our children, they begin to embrace their own culture? They are bombarded with so much information around American music. On TV they see American music, on radio even our own DJs, our own radio presenters, they will tell you about the birthday of Beyonce, but they cannot tell you about the birthday of Jairus Nkwe of Trompis. I remember one time in this country, in this African continent, people had a day or a something like a day to honor Tupac across the country, a day to honor Tupac. And yet we don't have a day to honor Hugh Masekela, we don't have a day to honor Miriam Makeba, we don't have a day that honors Lucky Dube, we don't have a day that honors our African heroes, icons, musical icons. Instead, we have a week, if it still exists. I despise that one. It's something that pains me to have a week in South Africa that is called South African Music Week, which shows that our minds are not aligned to the cause. We speak when such situations occur, when we lose them, and you have everybody talking now, giving history of that person, when that person could have given his own history and narrated his own history throughout all these universities that are there, at high schools, written books about our history, so that our children can be able to read about this history. I think it was Ubaba O.R. Tambo once said that if we do not write our own history, our history will be written by hunters, will resemble that of lions, which is forever written by hunters. Our history will be written by foreigners, people who don't know a thing about us, who have researched about us, when we could have written our own history whilst we're still alive, tell our own history, digitalize it, let it be in the archives, the archives that are managed by the Department of Arts and Culture, so that in the libraries, national libraries, these books and these histories could be deposited for the use of our children to be able to read, to learn about our history. I remember some time ago when I was still at school and I was studying, I would go to Sandton Library and sit there and even listen to the audio narratives or narration about histories of other people. And when I was trying to look for things, the history of Abu Mam Miriam Makeba, Abu Mam Letambuli, Kefas Menya, Hugh Masekela and them, I got shocked by the fact that there were only newspaper clips. At a library, there were only newspaper clips. So the only thing that you could draw information from were newspapers. A shame, indeed a shame. We should be able to go to a library, for instance, and you go to a library, a particular row where you go to, this particular row, it has musical icons books. Everyone that you know should be having a book in the shelves, especially the icons, the veterans. so that I can read about Brenda Fassie and know what Brenda Fassie did right, what Brenda Fassie did wrong, so that our generation, our future generation, could learn from that so that the future is safe in their hands. An uninformed young person taking a responsibility of leading would not lead the country towards the right direction. If we are not, again, I think it was also Babu or Artham said, a country that doesn't care about its youth doesn't deserve its future, which was very true. We are all about ourselves as individuals as opposed to the nation building, our young people, transferring skills and knowledge to our young people. It is an African way of transferring information from one generation to another generation. We narrate our stories. Abo Mamgina, I don't know whether she's still there, she's still doing that. She used to tell stories on SABC. We have a broadcaster that could also be facilitating such programs. A program where you have elderly people of our industry, icons, coming in now and then, coming in to tell their old stories so that it is broadcast. But we are telling stories about Jay-Z. We are concerned about the Jay-Zs, the Beyoncés and that. Shame on our country. Shame on us. Right. Fast forward. Now, you have a program that is called, it relates to veterans. It's a program by the Department of Arts and Culture that focuses on how can veterans be utilized. I made mention of how sports, yesterday I made mention of how sports retain its footballers. You don't find somebody who retires from football disappearing from the scenes. He then becomes a commentator, for instance. On TV, you see the commentators. Now commentators have soccer players. Instead of us going to recruit somebody because he has the good looks and he speaks better English, let's have Dr. Kumalo. Let's have Max Paponyane as the sports is doing. Why don't we have our own people being the ones who are presenting the music programs on SABC, on TV, on the national broadcaster, and on radio stations? You have them also being there to talk about music when you have to discuss. You know how we are losing on good interviews that we could be running with these icons when they are still alive, because the person who is sitting on the other side of the desk or on the other side of the mic, they really don't understand the music industry. Even their questions are limited to what they know. You cannot ask a question that is beyond what you know. You always ask questions that you think, oh, I think because of this, I've heard people say that artists are being exploited. But you cannot go into deep discussions and ask questions like, what is your take on the intellectual property right, especially this particular part that talks about fair use? We are asked questions that we were asked 20 years ago. Even today, you are still asked, so what inspired you? How did you get into the industry? What inspired you? You know, that's an old story. We're beginning to sound like Ama Records and a scratch. in these interviews, because we are not utilizing the skills and the capacity of the people who are now no longer able to perform, but they have so much information. I am still crying for the departure of Obabore Pierre, because he was such a good narrator of stories. Today people, they talk about the exploitation of artists, but they don't know. They're asking the same question that was asked when Mahlatini died. What causes artists to die poor? We still don't have anyone who can just say, this is what I know. Somebody who is outside the industry would not be able to tell what causes artists to die poor. That is why the perception, the general perception, the public perception is that these guys, they waste their monies. They live glamorous lives. They spend their monies when they have spent their monies, they finish their monies, then they come back and make noise. People don't know the struggles faced by artists. Because of the glamour that is purported or projected by the public, by the media, by themselves on social media, people think that they are living a glamorous life. Let me tell you, you will forever be shocked by anyone who dies and you are told that they've died poor. And the Department of Arts and Culture must come on board and come and donate and sponsor the funeral. I do not want a sponsored funeral, because that is against, it contradicts the very essence of this freedom that we have today. That we say, post-1994, those who were dehumanized, those who were ripped of their dignity, stripped of their dignity, this constitution that we have today restores the dignity of those who were disadvantaged previously. And yet here's a black person who has been a pride of the nation, and then when they die, that dignity is not there. Dignity is not bestowed by the words that we utter. Dignity, it is how people respect, it talks to the respect people have about you. Now, if I am reported not to have money, to be poor, be faced with these woes, be doing this, what dignity does that bestow on me? We can't talk dignity, and yet everything that is happening around this sector, it strips off everyone's dignity. I was listening to, I think it was a Zoom, I just got into it in the middle of it, so I don't know what it is about. There was a Zoom conference, I think there's a launch, a media, there's a launch around some project. I don't know whether it's a project for journalists. And this looks at the president of the organization, the Association of Journalists, was talking about journalists who have been murdered across the continent. People who were abducted and they were killed, journalists who were abducted and they were killed. And as he was talking, he says that they are killed for doing their job. And then he goes into mentioning the right to freedom of expression, freedom of media, freedom of expression. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, These are constitutional rights that he's mentioning. It's things that are captured by the Constitution. Now, I cannot condone the killing of journalists or the disadvantaging of journalists from doing their jobs. But I ask myself, as they speak, they talk of their rights. But when they do their job, they infringe on other people's rights. They violate, especially the sector. They don't treat the sector with the same equality, which is a right, by the way. With the same equality approach. When they write your story, they write a story about a sector person, they will divulge any information, even confidential information that is supposed to be confidential information between the sector person and his or her doctor. Health issues. They will tell everything about it because they get information leaked. They will tell everything about the repossession of a house and tell you how much it is worth or how much you owe, which is an information that is supposed to be confidential between the bank and the client. But when they write about, for instance, when they write about a lawyer, they will say, in our possession, the information that we have in our possession, because they are seeking legal advice, they cannot divulge the information. It means that when they write about professionals, they tread carefully. But when they write about sector people, they don't care. They violate the very constitutional right that we're supposed to be enjoying. Right to privacy. What is private about us? What is private about other citizens is not private when it comes to us. And then they use this thing that in the public interest. When you look at that phrase that says in the public interest, you can go and search for it in the Constitution. It's not there. It's not there. There's no phrase that says in the public interest, the right to public interest. There's no such. But they use that, and the phrase is that they would also use it, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. So they don't treat us they treat us with prejudice, which is unconstitutional, because everyone in the country should be treated equally, with the same approach, with the same respect that they afford to others. If the information it is confidential, they must say that we do have the evidence, but we are seeking legal advice. And if the matter is in the court, it is sub judice. They must respect the information of, the status of a matter that is in the court, before court, as a sub judice matter, as they would do with others. But to us, we are just a scoop. Every day, every Sunday, we are just a scoop. Somebody has done something, they write, and then when they realize that no, this was not true, then they put a very small apology. When they write about you, they give you a billboard. They make you the front they make billboards around your face and your name when your story is not the front page story, but it is on the third page. So I was thinking, again, maybe one has to constructively engage this association of Umfelandawonyoma journalists. It's something that I'm going to do. I'm going to write to the president of. You see, because of this animosity that one has developed towards the media, we are not even concerned about what is happening. We are less informed about what is happening. I don't even know who the president of SANEF is now. The last one I knew was Matata Tsedu, but the current one I don't know because I'm less interested in what is happening. And these are our brothers and sisters who are writing these stories, and we should be able to sit together and discuss about this, that it can be post-1994, when black people were made to look bad before 1994. We're still making black people to look bad post-1994. So it is the mental slavery that we have inherited from the apartheid era. We're still maintaining the apartheid ways of dealing with black people. If a black person is driving a BMW, he's a drug dealer. If a white person is driving a BMW, he's a successful businessman. If a black person, I remember when we went, I told you the story around Trumpis, that when we went to the bank with our first checks that we got from Gallo as our royalties, because we had fat checks at the bank, it took them hours to assist us with those. Instead, we ended up having cops in the bank, surrounding the bank, because the bank did not trust these black faces that were carrying checks. They thought that maybe we have fraudulently acquired those checks. And we are the ones who are now maintaining the mentality of apartheid and colonialism. Now, I'm saying that with the veterans that we are losing so much education that we will never get in our schools. Department of Education should have been part of this. That is why when a meeting at Sandton Convention Center that was called by the then President Jacob Zuma, Department of Education, Minister from Education was part of that. Blake Nzimande was part of that sitting. But what have you heard from the Department of Education since then? 2009, we are now in 2021. What have you heard that the Department of Education is meeting the sector? The Department of Education is introducing a subject at school that is, the Department of Education is introducing this particular program that will accommodate educators from the sector. People who have gone to universities and studied music and studied arts, to be given the opportunity to be, in fact, to be recognized as teachers, qualified teachers, and have these subjects introduced even at primary schools. This is where the excellence of United States come from, because children are taught. They are directed towards their ultimate careers from as early age as primary school. And the school, the education identifies the careers, the gifts of these children, and direct them and get them. The government of United States will do anything, takes children, young people from high school or from high school to college, pays for them. When they are excellent in, anyone who's excellent in soccer, they get looked after, nurtured for their national role when they finish their school, but assisted academically so that they don't leave school and go and think that the best way, because I don't have money to go to school and I have this talent of playing soccer, let me then go and play soccer. I've seen people making money out of soccer changing their lives. No, they are kept. They are taken to college. They study, they do the academic work, and they are then given the support on what they are capable, or on what they are good at, on their talent. But in South Africa, it is the opposite. Yeah, that is why we have young people not finishing their school and opting to go and be in the music industry. Look at the pop idols. How many people you see wanting to be part of this sector? Even people who don't have the talent, the wooden mic people, wooden mic guys. Because to them it is an alternative way, an alternative means of making it in life if they cannot cope with mathematics at school, if they cannot cope with science at school. The easy way out, let me go to the music and do music. Mendoza did music and he was successful. So and so did music and they were successful. Sawawa was a little boy when he did music and he became successful. It is a distorted picture that we are painting and misleading our young people towards their careers. Even educated, I mean, it's even worse when you look at the graduates from universities. People who graduate in music from universities, they end up being employed by people who are not educated as part of their backing bands. With a degree, you're sitting on your keyboard playing for somebody and backing somebody who has no degree. He's your boss. And how do we then encourage, how do I say to young people, no, go to school before you get into the music industry. Education is important. So we need the Department of Education to be active, to begin to active. CIFSA's role is there to say which department is not active, is not playing its role when it comes to the industry. Let's have policy, let's develop policy, let's have regulations around that. Department of Education, give us a syllabus that has all the art forms in it, so that young people are taught from school. People who are doing woodwork, let them be taught how to make instruments instead of being taught how to do teaspoons. So it is indeed important that we refocus our minds. I am going to take that initiative to write to SANEF and say, can we have a dialogue? And Department of Education, can we have a dialogue? CIFSA must write to that one. Can we have a dialogue, Department? Department of Economic Development, you are part of us. Economic development is not about mining and farming only, agriculture only. In the industry, it is called an industry because it is an industry. It is not called an industry because just because it is nice to call it an industry. It is an industry. It requires skills. There are skills that need to be developed. We have the former beneficiaries, the beneficiaries of the former apartheid system, who are still operating even today. They have so much capacity and skills. Why don't we have a program that looks at RISA every year? RISA must have a number of students, internships that it runs. And these internships should be supported by the SETA, within the sector SETA. Record companies have a program that collaborates with universities and in fact institutions of higher learning where people are learning skills, so that these record companies can give these young people practicals. In the apartheid era, we used to have technicons, and in technicons you would go and study for 6 months theory and then 6 months practical, and the people were getting bursaries from companies that would be taking them to do these practicals. If you want to work at ESCOM, ESCOM will provide you with a bursary to go to university to study electrical engineering. And at Technicon, you do electrical engineering at Technicon for 6 months, and then the rest of the years, the other 6 months, you're doing the practical. The following year, 6 months theory. The following, the other 6 months practical. So by the time you leave school, you are familiar with the workplace. You have gained experience that everybody is looking for these days. Everyone wants people with experience, but no one is willing to give young people experience. When they leave university with theory, and they become so irrelevant irrelevant to the industries that they should be employed in. That is why we have so many graduates who are unemployed. They are qualified, but they are unemployed. Yet we say education is the key. So even in this sector, we need such programs. We need minds, jacked up minds that will streetwise minds that would look at these things. What can we do with universities? There are universities who are offering these courses that relate to the sector. Let's have programs, a collaborative program that says those, for instance, look at a simple example. MBA, when you do MBA, you are allowed to do MBA not because you've got the matric certificate. If you have been in business, you have been in business for a particular period of time and a long time, you are allowed to do an MBA without matric certificate. If my memory serves me well, and if that is still the situation. And that is progressive because it considers the previous, what do they call the prior learning, or I'm forgetting now because I haven't been in the politics for some time. In this dialogue has been just cut off, has been suppressed. We used to be very good at even engaging on issues. We're good because we're trained through these processes where we had dialogues, and you would learn from these dialogues, and you would gain even confidence to speak about issues because you were knowledgeable. Prior learning, I think it's something like that. Prior learning, meaning that they consider your experience as part of your education, because our education should not resemble that of the Western cultures. It should not be standardized around the Western values. Say, if you didn't study academically, therefore you are useless, you don't qualify. We are Africans, we come from an era that we know that yeah, Africans were given Bantu education, inferior education, so that it keeps them as lesser human beings than anything. Now we have in the industry people who've been in the industry forever. We have been in the industry for long enough that for over 20, 30 years, meaning that I can go to and do an MBA, which will help me to be able to improve my skills, my knowledge, enhance my management skills in terms of my business. It means I can be able, and there could be a program run by the Department of Arts and Culture that relates to the collaboration with universities around that, and sponsoring the people to go to school and educate themselves, because if we do so, these are the very same people who are influential. It will then influence young people to say, oh, education, always it must be education and your talent. Your talent should not just go all by itself, but you must be able to gather knowledge. Take young people who are inclined to IT, because we need those in the industry. We need IT specialists. We always following what Americans are introducing and inventing. We are not inventors, and yet we have unique things that we could have invented with what we have. Look at the archives, the history that we have. When you go to Galo, you have the history of South African music. Keep him your kids. Mahotela Queens and Mahlatin music that we could be digitizing and sampling these, making these into samples that could then be utilized, instead of us. Some of us, we are using samples that have been made by Americans with the sounds that sounds like, they say it's African sounds. And you know this, I've been talking about this for some time. When and these samples are sold to us, and we use these in our music. That's Africa. These are the samples made by Americans, voices of Americans. Instead of us sampling the Black Ladysmith Black Mambazo with real African voices, we are using American African voices, trying to sound like Africans, because we don't have the minds and the capacity, and the capacity that will think towards that. I mean, the minds that will think towards that direction to say, what is required. The Department of Arts and Culture that would sit and say, what would be required for us to have all our music turned into, our archives turned into samples that could be used in songs. And see, tomorrow we'll have an American artist who has sampled a South African song and becoming a hit and selling millions of copies in South Africa. Yet the music that they sampled never sold million copies. We'll have a situation like that. We've seen Beyonce taking Spanzula, importing Spanzula from Mozambique instead of importing it from South Africa, because she knows that if she imports it from South Africa, she can't take ownership of it. Now she wants those that don't own it but they can do it to then teach her, so that then they can say it is the discoveries they've discovered, just like the Jan van Riebeeck discoveries of people who were living in areas and rivers that were there, with people living around those rivers. They discovered these rivers. the discoveries of Paul Simon, of Ray Pires and Bagiti Kumalo and them, Graceland. There's dialogue that is missing. There is a dialogue that is missing in our nation, in our country. We are thrown into these confusions that we are faced with because we don't dialogue. We have a subtle authoritative leadership that says, it is what I say that goes. This is what I want, and therefore I will focus on what I want, instead of saying, what are the people saying? What are people asking for? The indigenous knowledge systems, these are under arts and culture. Indigenous knowledge systems are our systems that are part and parcel of culture, arts and culture in our country. Where are we? Our own people despise our own ways of doing things, the indigenous ways of doing things. They can't associate themselves with that, or identify themselves with that. That is why we have this discourse. I mean, this it's not a discourse, it is a disjuncture of people who are saying, no, white medicine. When you bring African medicine, I know that Kebului. Yes, yet all these medicines are made out of the very same herbs that they are using, Africans are using. At the moment, we have a situation around the issue of the cannabis, marijuana, dacha, nsam, cannabis. All along, it was prohibited in the country, and some people, Africans out there, were fighting that it be legalized. The Rastafarianism movement and other people, Africans. But at the moment, if you go and find out now that it has been legalized, who are at the forefront of the economic part of that? It is white people, white companies, white big companies, capitalists, turning insamu into oils, and these are very expensive, by the way. People who are getting license to do business. Yeah, cannabis. Is it cannabis? What is it? I have to check it. This word, what it is called. But it is white people who are getting licenses, not black people. Yet it was black people who fought for the legalization of insam. But today, they are still at the periphery of the economy. They must enjoy smoking it, and that's it. But when it comes to making these beautiful oils, it is now medicine. It now produces medical things. Now people know that that thing can heal, which was always something that makes people to go mad. And these things cannot be changed by any other person, by any other people than us. We need to have a dialogue. We need to have these dialogues. We need to start talking about these things. Back to the veterans program. The veterans program is an adapted program or model from United States. It is a program that says at the age of 70, you can then be a beneficiary of the funds that are allocated by the department for a program or a skills development program. utilizing the veterans to go and teach young people. Good idea. But the execution of it is not right. What makes it not right? It is an American adapted program. But when you adapt a program from America, you must take into cognizance the following. The material conditions of United States are not the same as the material conditions of South Africa. An artist in the United States at the age of 18 is a millionaire or multimillionaire or can be a billionaire. Now, a person who is wealthy, logically it follows that that person eats better, has got better food or better diet or dietary, has got better access to medication, lives a stress-free life, the possibility, the mortality rate, therefore, it is better in the United States than in South Africa. Because our people have been unfortunately disadvantaged by the conditions. Firstly, by the apartheid era, apartheid system, that made them to live an inferior life or inferior lifestyle. And currently, artists are poor in our country. So the mortality rate is subject to how you live, how better your life, your health is taken care of. United States has got better health facilities, better health approaches. When you are diabetic in the United States, there's a possibility of you surviving longer than somebody who's diabetic in South Africa as an artist, who doesn't have money to buy proper dietary, to eat properly, better cooked food. You have to eat the food that is cooked for the whole family. You can't have your own food cooked separately because you cannot afford. We can't afford burying our own. Or people in this industry cannot afford burying themselves. How can they afford to buy food, grocery, that is relevant for people who are diabetic? Now they're going to die before time. But in America, they live longer. That is why you see people like Diana Ross, Abu Banban, you can name them. They have lived for longer. And at the time of death, when they die, these people, they still are rich. They have less stress. Now, when you then take that into consideration and then come and say 70 and then 70, because in America it's 70 and then 70 in South Africa, then it means that no one will access that, will access those funds. No one will. I said yesterday, Ray Phiri died at the age of 70. He had just turned 70. It means that he had not even qualified. When he died, he was not part of the veterans program. I am not going to get to 70. If I get to 70, thank God. It's a blessing. So are you saying that I cannot teach? With all the knowledge that I have, I cannot be part of the veterans? So it means that you must lower the age limit of that particular program because you are considerate of all the factors that are around the South African sector people. The veterans program must also look into health issues of veterans. So if you start looking at the issues of health, the health issues of veterans at the age of 70, you have missed You have missed the right time to do that. Because many people from age of 40, that's when you begin to have what I call speed traps. All these speed traps. You begin now to worry about how you eat. You begin to worry. Then lower your age restriction. Even if it is at 50, put it at 50. Put it at 50. Because somebody who's at the age, I'm 55. I'm 55 this year. And I still have the energy. I can still go national and what. But if you take here somebody who's old, who can't even walk, udlala ngayo. And now from the age of 50 to 70, that 20-year gap, what are they doing? Sitting home and waiting for the age to come, 70 years. It's not even the pension age. Waiting for that, it means that you are saying people who are in the sector can only retire when they are 70. Because the gap between 50 and 70 is 20 years. They are not doing anything. They are waiting to reach the age of 70, and then they can go and start being teachers at schools, go to primary schools, go to institutions of the arts, to go and teach, transfer skills, have their own, and we have township halls that are empty, that are not utilized. Others are dilapidated. These are the township, and this space is owned, it's managed by the Department of Arts and Culture. It is a space that is supposed to be run by the township halls. Bring in these programs to say, okay, every township hall, we renovate it, we make it look nice, we get young people off the streets from Nyawope. Come, there's Somizi. Somizi is going to teach you guys how to dance. He's a choreographer. He doesn't have to be 70 in order to teach young kids. At the age of 70, he won't be able to dance like he's dancing now. Keep the country busy. Keep young people busy. Have them dancing. They know they like Somizi, and they know Somizi can dance and can teach them how to dance. There are so many people. We have influencers on Instagram. We have people who are influencers in Instagram. They could be utilized to teach sector people, how do you become an influencer? How do you do it? Because other musicians don't know how to do it. They are struggling to get into that space. Be on your toes, be on your toes, be quick to tap into an opportunity. Now, veterans are dying even before 70. In fact, the only veterans who are reaching 70 are those. Most of them were in exile. I don't know why. Because those who were here in South Africa, the Brenda Fassie's, the Mercy Pakelas, but they don't reach that age. And because of the conditions that I've stated. But Mercy Pakela can still dance, can still do something, can go and teach young people about the music industry. She's passionate about the exploitation of artists. She can go and teach artists, teach them how exploitation takes place, how does it take place in the industry, what happens for one to be exploited, what the experiences that she has had. If she has misused money, she must be able to teach young people in the sector to say, be careful of this. And team up with a financial institution that will then bring financial literacy to young people in the industry so that they don't look like Mercy Pakela when they grow old. Because Messi Pakela didn't have the luxury of education to teach her how to manage her finances, to teach her about money, to teach her to improve her. Rebecca Malope was helped by the company to have a tutor. She did not know how to speak English when she started. And today, Rebecca Malope speaks English. Instead, Mendoza was made a joke in this country, which is something that could be looked into as a program. We're sharpening our own, we're refining our gold, we are purifying. We have the golden economy program. But we are not refining our own. So that, you see, when we refine our own, it means that when we export these commodities, when we export them to United States, when you export them, when you do certain events, and we have certain events or certain, the entourage with the president going to United States for economic discussions in terms of investors, you have a group of people, that a pool where you can just say, so and so and so and so and so and so, I want you to go with the entourage, our president, to go and entertain. Because you know, when they are there, it will be business people from all over the world who will be there. Now you are promoting your own during a very important meeting. And somebody who performs in such an important meeting would be taken serious. Instead of us importing the foreign content, we're supposed to be exporting the foreign content. Abo Babu Jonas Gwamba, Abo Miriam Makeba, Abo Huma Sikela, they were made popular outside the country. The Sanko Motors were made popular outside there. We have Tepo Tsula, he's here. We're waiting for him to die, and then we're going to go and say, hey, when everybody will be saying, hey, this song. We seem to be, I don't know what's happening with us. I really don't know what's happening with Africa. We seem to be very reactive instead of being proactive. We seem to be sleeping most of the time than to be awoken, to be awake. We are following the trends. When people are saying who's trending, you know that United States should be number one in things that are trending. We are always following. Instead, our moral regeneration program, which resides with the deputy president in government, it's quiet. And we see on social media how our moral fiber is degenerating. And it is generating within the entertainment space. It is driven by the entertainment space. Social media and all these things, the videos that are being posted, they are part of us as a sector, the entertainment sector. They are part of us as arts and culture. That is creativity, which falls under this creative and cultural industries. And why not use those to encourage people the African values? We are happy that people with full bodies are now appreciated, which is an African beauty. But this African beauty is getting distorted day by day, because it is no longer about the full body beauty, the beauty around the full body. It is now the sexual appeal, sex symbol. We're going back to the very same thing that we were used, the Sarah Baartman situation, who was paraded naked in front of, she had big bums, she had big this, she had a big, now paraded and even taken to, taken abroad and owned abroad. Even after death, she was kept for people to see, making fun out of her, entertaining French people, entertaining this, we are maintaining everything that colonizers did, the apartheid system did. The migration of workers from their province, from their the homesteads into the industrialized areas. We are still maintaining that. Why? We are not dealing with the issues. Instead, we are introducing new issues instead of dealing with the past, remedying the past. Reparations. I called for reparations in 1994. Our elderly, our veterans sitting at home who were part of this industry during apartheid eras, meaning that they suffered. We remember what used to happen with the issue of not the restrictions around being in town after a particular hour. At 7 p.m. no black person must be seen, and that's when the music was in the theaters. That's what I mean in the what's that, kippies, for instance. It means that our artists could not perform freely. Others were arrested. They would then sneak into a place and then keep themselves, entertain people in shebeens, and then boom, the cops will come and pick them up. We know that they suffered under apartheid. Where are the reparations for that suffering, for those sufferings? If people who were working under the asbestos industries were reparated because of the apartheid system that dehumanized people, that used people, exploited people as cheap labor. Our artists were used as cheap labor in the apartheid era. That is why today they don't have anything. But when you look at Americans, an American artist dies with all the wealth, still having the value. They don't have to work. Others, who knows Sade, where Sade is? Did only 1 or 2 albums, but if you go there, you'll find that Sade is still fine. Because, she made enough sales from her album. We are not making sales. There's piracy that is killing the industry. There is now the digital space that is still continuing to kill the industry because people are not downloading and buying the music. They are downloading for free on the internet. I know for a fact I can do it. I can download music. It takes me a minute to do that, to download the music from internet. Any music that I don't have, if I want a song, if I would have a party now and somebody wants a song that I don't have, I can go onto internet, Google the song and download it for free. Who is going to come and arrest me for having done so? No, we're not really checked up with the issues. We are not moving with the issues. 25 years have been wasted with nothing to show in our section. So I'm saying that let's look into into that program. I'm going to be a pest in the ears and eyes of many people. I'm going to start writing again. I had given up, but I am encouraged to start writing again and say, can we meet? Let's discuss this thing. Let's engage. I'm going to write to SIFSA constantly, because if SIFSA is going to be an extension of the department and not be active in dealing with the issues, but be a praise singer of the department, the mouthpiece of the department, or any other department, or any other minister, then it will be a sad situation. And so I've taken some tablets and now I can feel them now, because I've got this stress that pulls my muscles and I have to do the massage with the machine, and quite a thing. And when I focus, now I'm like thinking deep. I'm focusing and I'm thinking deep, and now my muscles are beginning to pull. And these are things that are sending us to the grave before time. Because we're stressing, we're thinking, where am I gonna get the next meal? Where am I gonna be? It's the 28th. Other people who are working, they know that they are going to earn a salary month end. If I haven't done anything by now, it means that I don't have money to pay my bills. We are going to see many depressing cases in this industry. During these lockdowns, we are going to see so many depression cases. We are going to see many people dying of related situations or diseases or instances like your heart attacks, strokes. There's Mam Sbongile Kumalo died of a stroke. We don't know why. We still gotta get. We don't know what was going on in her mind as she was at home, alone probably. We don't have anyone checking on everybody, that if everyone is okay, we don't check on each other. We only check on each other on social media. And I want to say this social media is painting a fake picture. It's painting a fake picture, and we will be shocked to see people dying young out of heart attacks, diabetes, all these chronic diseases. Because they are scared. HIV, AIDS, they are scared to go and check, and they don't have money to go to private hospital, so they are scared to go to government hospital, because when you go to the government hospital, the next thing you will be on the third page of the newspaper to say, weed. He can't even afford to go to the private hospital. Private hospitals are expensive. If you're hospitalized at such private hospitals, you are you would possibly come out with a bill of about 70,000 rands. If you don't have a medical aid, where do you get 70,000 rands just to pay for 3 days in hospital? We know what happened with Vuyo Mokoena. We know what happened with Jabu Kanyile. And this is part of the veteran. That's why I'm saying it must be part and parcel of the veterans program that looks into the health issues of these veterans. A program for between 50 and 70 that looks into guys encouraging people to live healthy, to keep fit. We have influencers, we have people who are posting every day about fitness on social media. There could be a collaboration with a fitness team. We had Bokwa, we presented Bokwa, but nobody listened. Even the Department of Arts and Culture. They were excited about it, but never followed up with it. Because probably it was coming to the department through Eugene Mtetwa and Paul Murphy. Should have came with somebody who's within the circles, then it would be running. Well, let me leave it there and say there's a lot that we can do. Policy, unfortunately, this is one sector that really doesn't move fast on policy. The regulatory framework of this sector is terrible. And the pace, the slow pace in which even government processes, they take very long time. I mean, the white paper, we had so much about the white paper. There's we are amending the white paper, we are reviewing the white paper, but where's the white paper? Who hears about the white paper? How it is benefiting the industry? Who knows in the sector people, do they know what the white paper is? What are the benefits? What are the things that this white paper is introducing that are new? What are the things that it is addressing from the past? The issue of ownership, for instance, of ownership of IP. It was supposed to be dealt with in the white paper, change that ownership, deal with the issue of removing, expropriating ownership of rights, the rights from those that arbitrarily took ownership of the rights, back to the real owners. It's a program on its own, a legal program that looks into the legal aspects of the industry, gets lawyers, black lawyers. There are so many lawyers who are out there running around, attending to divorce cases, attending to this useless things, things that don't really make much impact in the society. Instead, they are taking away from the society. They're taking away the building blocks, which is family units are building blocks of our society. As Africans, communities are built by families. Then divorce is taking away that. Because people enter into marriage without even understanding what they are. Those old ways, which are also still part of our culture. Our mama who would use our mama wadala who would sit down and advise Abu Makut. It could be a program, a national program, to circumvent the high rate of divorces. There's a lot that you can do in the sector. I don't know what that department is all about, really. That department was supposed to be one department that says, we are piled up with so much work. And we would see, we would hear, because we have influencers who then would go to social media and say, this is where we were, posting the pictures of them sitting there with elderly women, Abomakoti program, Abomakoti, sitting with elderly women, advising them. Young men who are about to get married, then there is a particular sitting with elderly men who would then teach them, this is how we used to do things, this is how things are done, this is what it is. The issue of, I don't know why are we running short of programs and more of events. It's about events now. Everyone wants to be a VIP. It shows the attitude, it shows that we don't have people who are passionate about this and people who are streetwise. And that is why I agreed with Julius when he said Mbalula could have done something, because Mbalula is streetwise. He has his own faults, but Mbalula is streetwise. You can't take it from him. You can't take that away from him. And he's on top of things, He's on top of things. He's very active, interactive with people. He has his own faults and old errors, but they could not be a hindrance. Transformation would have been very far in this country had we had Mbalula. And I don't know why our sector is forever, unfortunately. It is so unfortunate. I even said at one gathering, it looks like when the devil was thrown out of heaven, he fell on earth with all the curse. And because we take after him, because it is said that the devil was the worship angel, the angel of worship. He had so much, was built, he was given all these instruments in his wings, he had, and that's what gave him pride, and that is why the sector people are so proud. They take after Lucifer. And Lucifer had all this, and when he came down, he was angry He was angry, and you know, we are angry. We seem to have inherited the curse, Yaga Satan, in this sector. There's nothing good for us. We always pray when elections approach, we go and participate fully and be. I remember that Thabo asked me that question, but I thought he was asking, he was making a statement when he said, you always, but I missed that question saying, but people would say that you always go and be part and parcel of the campaigns. Then when you are there during the campaigns, you are happy, and then after, then you start making noise. You don't make noise during the campaigns. That is so true. We don't make noise during the campaigns. We do go and campaign because some of us, we have no other political homes. We have so much, we still hope that one day we'll get somebody who will make wonders. Just like the mining sector got somebody who made wonders for them, and that is why the mining sector has got a charter. We don't have a charter after 25 years. This sector has got no charter. So you ask yourself, all these years, what has been happening? We don't have a charter. The mining sector and other sectors, they started from there. No charter. White paper takes so many years to get it reviewed, and then when it is reviewed, it is left in the shelf. Nobody's talking about the white paper. Not even the department to say, now, let's go. Let's implement the white paper. Program number 1, this to implement. Program number 2, nothing. It was just a wasteful expenditure or a sentiment. It was based on sentiments. Look, guys, we are doing something. At least we are doing something, guys. Here's the white paper. We are reviewing the white paper. You've reviewed the white paper. Let us see the impact of the white paper. I said, please. I'm not going to die and leave my kids in this mess. And God forbid. I'm praying every night, every day, that God keep me. Keep me, because this COVID-19 situation has taught me something to value life, has taught me that we don't have enough time on earth. This thing of postponing things and postponing and waiting for people who are taking their own time. One thing that I don't even understand with government officials, I know, I've worked in government. I know for a fact that when you go on leave, you're going to be absent at work. You delegate. It is a policy. You leave somebody in your position. But how many of us or how many of you have gone to the department and you are told, no, DG is not here. It's only coming back. Oh no, director is not here. The director is not here. But you ask yourself, but the director is on leave, but somebody is working. If the director is on leave, has he left with the department? So the department is dysfunctional when the director, the DG is not there, when the minister is not there, when is it dysfunctional? The minister, there's deputy minister. When the minister is not there, there's deputy minister. When the deputy minister is not there, there's DG, there's, all these ranks are there. But every time people are not in the office, everything stops. Nothing happens. I hope my daughter njengoba so appointiwe ke kule Public Service Commission will be able to come to you. I'm not sure, I'm not yet clear about the role of this Public Service Commission. I'm not really clear about it yet. I have to go and dig into the information, what it is, its role. Because you can't have officials that don't respond to emails. It's unacceptable in government to have somebody who sits there and not respond to emails as if he's running he's working at his uncle's spaza, where he cannot, it's family business. You can't have a situation like that when we have the Department of Public Service. Oh no, it's public admin. Now public service. That's why I'm saying maybe I'm missing things, but the Department of Public Administration, it's supposed to be dealing with these issues and saying, anyone have a program that says, name them and shame them, then we will follow. We can't have people in government who cannot be fired. Everyone knows when they get into government, they can't be fired, and therefore they do as they wish. They were very good when they arrived, and then later on they then let loose because they know that they are comfortable, they are now fine, they are earning their salary, so they don't care. We can't have a situation like that. Not anymore. If it means one must cross the floor and go into the oppositional party and start raising issues from the opposition's desk or opposition's side, we will do so. We don't have a lifetime contract with the political parties that we are within. If they are no longer serving our interests, if they're no longer serving the mass democratic revolution that we aspired to be members of such because of that, then if they are irrelevant, we cannot be blamed if we leave. We're looking for a home that will do wonders for us. Unfortunately, that will happen. That is the unfortunate situation. It will happen and no one will tell us anything. It's good that you remember when Ringo left and joined EFF. Remember how they made him look like a clown in Parliament. I'll join too. Because Ringo is silent. He's on the other side, but he's silent. You don't hear it. You've never had any debate in Parliament about the sector, except in the Portfolio Committee. But even things that are happening in the Portfolio Committee, you don't find them escalated to the sitting of the Parliament. Who has ever had any debate around the budget speech of the Minister of Arts and Culture? Nothing. We can't have a situation like that. Really, we can't. Not anymore. I will continue to do these videos. I will continue to do them because as I speak my heart out, as I pour my heart out to you guys, as I speak, I know this is recording and it is captured and it's there for life. So people can go back and say, yes, Sienna, why is she no good? My kids can go back and say, what did Daddy say about this? And I have that hope that one day, I have a dream just like Martin Luther King. I have a dream that one day, this sector will change for better. I have that hope that one day, this sector will find its impression in the manifesto of a political party that will say, as the political party, our manifesto says, not this social cohesion issue. Forever social cohesion. No, talk transformation. In that document of the manifesto, talk transformation of this sector. Not just social cohesion. And then you say everything is clubbed under social cohesion. When you look at the paragraph of social cohesion, it's like 4 lines, 5 lines, but you're saying, no, you see, everything is like, no, be explicit about things that you want to do. When you say expropriation of land without compensation, we know that what are you talking about, because that could have been easily said. No, it is clubbed under rural development or agriculture. You could have easily said so, but you specifically talking about that, and I want such explicit pronouncements, not from kumavaga asabu kuluma asabu ukuhlukumeza ukuthi bazothi bahlukumeza belungu. Mavaga hawacheche khuye rona kopile re sa tshabeng go bua, re sa tshabeng ditho. Mangivale lapho ke ngithi umntaka Jobe lo dingiswayo Nyambose Mfolo zomnyama okhetha abawelayo nabawela abaqokelela hlangaleswe lo ikhulisa Nkosi umntaka Thetho umntaka Mthethwa Mthetho baba ngomthetho nami ngomthetho so ngumntaka Mthetho sharp bafethu great. Let me greet people, let me send this greetings. It's good to see people are joining. Quite often it means there's need for